great. I think we've had two of the hottest funds in the country the last year present to us. One is Gammon Capital, which had an outsized performance this year of about 600% on the market. And there's another one out of Hong Kong that we will have that's at a 500% return that we'll be speaking at one of our events in the next couple of months. And then on a more to-date performance, we've got Upper 90, which is probably the most well-known lending company in the venture capital space, which has about 400 million under management. And they had about a 37% return last year. But they manage a lot more money than these other funds. So I would have liked to have gotten the manager selection discussions on credit funds, because I think credit with interest rates where they are is still very interesting to most everybody. And there are opportunities that in credit that, again, getting back to this whole kind of narrowness of the opportunity, it may have lots of capacity, but you have to be very narrow in it. We see a lot of this happening. So I think that the lending in the venture space is only going to increase. So let's talk about TriNet. So I've known TriNet since they were little babies. They were like a small company back in 2005. And actually one of their heads of marketing was a part of our group. A hedge fund group that we ran, they market a lot. They're an outsourced provider of benefit services. So one of the things I always tell, I have lots of fund managers come to me all the time, and I ask them, how are they set up? How are they operationally? And I always tell people, just outsource whatever you're not an expert at, because it just makes sense, right? Don't get involved. I mean, even though you might be an MBA or whatever, don't get involved in doing stuff that isn't really essential to your business. You will be rewarded far greater for focusing on what you do best and outsourcing the rest. So we're very lucky to have TriNet here, and take it away. Why don't you guys? Is Andrew on as well?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, perfect, great. So,
all right. Thanks, Marty, and thank you for the background there for everybody. So happy to be here with everyone virtually. So my name is Andrew Brown, Managing Director of Sales for the Financial Services practice here at TriNet. I'm here with my colleague.
Yeah, Douglas Parker, Regional Sales Consultant here on the New York City base, and covering the East Coast. So,
yeah. So for those who aren't familiar, I'll give a quick background on who we are. TriNet is a HR outsourcing company. Been in business for 32 years, actually. Went public in 2014. Currently have 3,800 financial service firms as clients. About 1,500 of which are alternative investment firms. So we have a lot of experience in this space, understand the operational needs of investment firms. And also we've been used as a platform for them to roll out to portfolio companies across different sectors to eliminate risk and especially help portfolio companies return to work or set up more ways to work from home. So today we're going to discuss different strategies for how a small business can handle their HR, whether to do it in-house or to outsource it, and just give an objective view on each. So with that said, I'll pass it back to Doug to start the presentation, and we will share our screen here as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. So kind of getting into, our presentation, talking about, like Andrew said, and Marty said, there's situations where you shouldn't necessarily want to have to, handle certain areas of your business, especially if you're an investor. You want your founder to focus on their core competencies and not, menial tasks. So we're going to go ahead and get into the presentation, and we're going to talk about the different options that you have as a as a small business. So just to start, go ahead and go to the next slide. So, there's obviously different options, when you're a small business on how to, kind of handle HR, if you will. So, the first option is, you want to do it on your own, right? It's kind of like saying, hey, look, our COO, our co-founder, our, office manager. We're going to basically do it on our own, and we want to, save money, right? And the perception is that, you have greater control, right? You say, hey, look, we have control over this. We want to, take advantage of not having to spend that extra dollar, if you will. And then, it's an inexpensive alternative to, kind of hiring someone else. I guess the disadvantages with that is, you have limited expertise, right? So if you're a COO of a firm or a CFO, you didn't get into business to handle the HR menial task, that it takes to kind of run a small business. Or if you're a CEO, you didn't get into business to do that. And then also, it takes focus away from your core responsibilities. You don't want to be in a situation where, these tasks are just, kind of stopping you from growing your business. And to mention another thing is it's kind of difficult to scale, right? So if you're a 30, 40 person company and you're, looking to, grow your business, you have growth, growth prospects, you want to be able to say, hey, look, we want to make it easy to get to that certain growth level. And if you're doing it on your own, it's a lot harder to do that, especially if you don't really have an HR background. And then compliance risk, right? We live in an extremely litigious society. So that makes it a lot harder to kind of keep up with all of the HR related laws that are being passed every single day. And if there's a lot of blind spots, if you will, right? It's kind of almost impossible to be able to keep up with all of the changes that are happening when it comes to small business HR related laws. So yeah, there's advantages and advantages for doing it internally on your own. Next slide.
All right, just froze up, Doug. Sorry.
Sorry.
There we go.
All right, so next slide. So yeah, option 2, right? You can hire additional staff, right? There are benefits of doing this. I think the advantage is if you're a bigger company, it makes sense for you to say, you know what, we're going to hire someone, we're going to hire an HR director, and we're going to give them, the ability to kind of run our whole HR department, or, you're going to give the HR director kind of leeway to hire additional staff. And it makes sense for a lot of different situations if you're a bigger company, and then you get that desired control that you want. But the disadvantages of that is, it can be pricey, right? If you're looking to, pay a HR director $150,000, and not to mention if she wants the additional staff, that it can get a lot more pricey. So, and then again, it still can take away from some of the core responsibilities of your firm. But if you're a smaller firm, let's just say 30, 40, 50 person company, it's tough to be, you might be strapped for cash. It might be tough to be able to do that. So that's another option is, to hire someone, outside and just to bring them in. So you can go to the next slide. And then this is something that we see pretty often, kind of using multiple vendors, right? So you get kind of using someone for payroll and, benefits and other, aspects of your business. So there are advantages to this as well. It addresses some growth needs, right? So if you have a lot of different vendors, you can kind of manage your growth of your company, with the different vendors, and they'll kind of help you with that. And it kind of helps you to kind of manage some of the risk, if you will, of kind of doing it on your own. And then also it allows you to choose features based on your need, right? So you can kind of choose a la carte, what type of firms you want to work with to kind of handle your benefits and payroll and your HRIS system. But the disadvantages that come with that, it still creates additional work, right? Managing a lot of different relationships like that, if you're the COO, CFO, or co-founder or what have you, it can get stressful at times, kind of keeping up with all of the different logins, and also for your employees, right? Your employees have to kind of be in a situation where they have to interact with a lot of different vendors as well. So, you just want to keep that in mind. And then not to mention, it can get pricey as well. Having a lot of different vendors, it can get pricey, and these prices can change, and it's just a lot to manage. So a lot of times it may not be the best option for small businesses. You can go to the next slide. And then there's the fourth option. You could use a PEO, or what we call a co-employment relationship. And there are advantages to this. TriNet is obviously a PEO. Flexibility and scalability, right? So PEOs are, their job is to help them manage, pretty much all aspects of your HR, right? And that gives them the ability to help you scale up, right? So a lot of the unicorns that you've probably heard of that have went public or that have had huge exits, they've had help. A lot of times they had help from, companies like TriNet or other PEOs to kind of help them scale and help them focus on their core business and not necessarily all of the HR, functionalities of their company, and help them stay compliant also. And then also with a PEO, it gives you access to big company infrastructure, right? Benefits and experience. So just think, if you're a 10, 15, 20 person startup, how are you going to compete with, the huge companies out there? How are you going to hire top tier talent? How are you going to be able to get them to leave Google or Amazon or whatever company out there to come with you? You have to have big company infrastructure and quality benefits for them to be able to kind of make that jump. And I think that's extremely important. So for a small business to have that, to have access to big company infrastructure, it just makes a huge difference, and it really buttons up your organization and makes you look like you're ready to play ball. And then access to HR expertise. Again, we as PEOs, we are professional employer organizations, and HR is what we do. We've been doing it for, has been doing it for over 30 years, and we know HR better than pretty much anybody out there. So letting a PEO partner with you kind of makes a ton of sense. And then also the sharing of the liability, just understanding that the PEO has kind of skin in the game. If something was to happen with your employees, you're not the only one that's on the hook. The PEO is there to kind of help with that. That really helps out a lot of small businesses. The disadvantages, with a PEO is, there's employers fear loss of control. They just think that, since there's that shared liability or that co-employer relationship, that that they don't have control of their employees, which is not the case. And then confusion of how it works, right? PEOs sometimes can seem complex, and that's why a lot of people kind of shy away from them or whatnot. But it's really not complex. It's one of those situations where you just kind of have to do your homework and understand that this is codified by the federal government, and tons of firms are using PEOs, and it's really been helping them to scale up their business and to stay compliant and help their employees. So with that being said, I want to let Andrew kind of finish off and go into what a PEO really is, kind of get a little deeper and go from there.
Great. Thank you, Doug. So yeah, why don't we start with what a PEO is, just since it's new probably to a lot of people here, and kind of understand what the business model is. So professional employer organizations manage functions such as payroll tax compliance, employee benefits, workers' compensation, and HR compliance. So the business model that they operate under is called co-employment, which Doug mentioned. So this business model allows a PEO to service their clients, and the arrangement enables companies to transfer many employer responsibilities to the PEO. So this includes aspects of employer-related risk and compliance related to HR, but also giving access to many of the PEO resources, in particular large company benefits. So I do want to stress that when a company enters into a co-employment arrangement, I know that sounds a little bit like losing control. Employees still work for their organization. the employer still retains control over operations, hiring, terminating, and day-to-day direction of the company. So this is more of a back-end HR function. So what are some of the advantages and use cases for working with a PEO? So the first is, PEO offers a fully integrated HR platform. I know Marty mentioned it earlier, Doug spoke about it. Really, this is, if you don't want to deal with it, you don't want distractions, you're worried about taking care of your portfolio companies or finding the next company to invest in, you don't want to spend time in areas that aren't, revenue generating. So a PEO covers all the HR items that a business needs to have in place once they hire their first employee and you start taking on some risk. So especially as a company grows, PEOs offer an HR infrastructure and support model to easily onboard and manage employees in different states or different locations. Also, you gain access to large company benefits, so you're not subject to what the local markets are offering, which in New York are not great and they're very expensive. So this can take you out of that small group playing field and into the large company pool. And then PEOs offer additional services beyond core HR functions. So that could be sexual harassment training, background checks, expense management, those sort of things. We see a lot of alternative investment firms embrace this because it takes everything off their plate. Okay, so some of the secondary benefits of using a PEO, you get access to big company infrastructure and the benefits, that enable small businesses to attract and retain key talent that might otherwise work at a large bank or more established financial institution because they offer that robust benefits package. And it's just too much of a risk to go work for that small company that doesn't offer the same level of doctors covered in network and that sort of thing. A good PEO will also offer all the other benefits that a big company will offer. So access to 401k, dental, vision, life, all those sort of voluntary benefits as well. And of course, all of it is administered and easily accessible through, technology. Okay, another advantage or consideration when evaluating a PEO is do you need HR expertise on a regular basis? I will say that we have seen a big uptick, especially as companies struggle to understand how to approach going back to work or how to set up infrastructures to support remote work. So anyways, this depends a lot of times on how many employees a company will have, how many locations, but also what type of employee experience and culture they're trying to create. PEOs have HR experts that can answer all these sort of HR related questions at the executive level and for the staff too. So it takes a lot of that burden off of an employer to be experts in answering these questions. Also, it can help with interviewing and performance management. And if you need to, terminate somebody, PEOs can give you the right sort of documentation to do that. Okay. And then the final thing to consider is, this just gives a visual of what a modern employer is dealing with when it comes to regulations. As this is not static; it's changing and growing, as you can see by the timeline. Okay. So finally, just what are some things to consider when trying to understand if outsourcing to a PEO for your HR is the right fit for your company? Obviously, you want to weigh the cost. How much does it cost you in money, time, and potential HR mistakes to try to perform the HR tasks internally versus outsourcing? Verifying that it's a legitimate partner. So there are a few industry accreditations for HR outsourcing firms to be aware of. The best PEOs out there will have them. Larger PEOs will also, offer services and benefits in all 50 states, and some will offer international services too, which could be a factor. And then, does your PEO work specifically with firms in your industry? Do they understand the rules and regulations, areas and industries can be important? And then finally, are you getting the type of benefits that will help you attract and retain the right people in your industry? We find it very important in the financial services industry to be able to offer top tier benefits with very low copays and deductibles. And that's why we see a lot of smaller financial service firms gravitate towards the model, for access to the benefits. So I was going fast there at the end, Marty. I know we were maybe a little bit over our time. So that concludes our presentation. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to Doug or myself. And we appreciate the time to present